my name is Santosh Krishnamurthy, and I head the agency business at the LinkedIn. And I'm really honored to have Siddharth with me. Siddharth Hegde, the managing director and founder of Ethinos Digital, a large independent agency working with a lot of B2B companies. Welcome, Siddharth.
Thank you. My pleasure to be here.
Siddharth, we are today going to talk about the B2B marketing outlook. And as you work with a lot of customers across genres, across geographies, we've been seeing that the companies are actually coping up with the recovery of pandemic and the current uncertain economic environment. And these are going to stay here. How are you seeing that the senior marketers across the globe, in India and outside, are working through these shifts? And what are the growth engines they're looking at?
I think the big thing we're seeing is that, traditionally a lot of marketers used to be a little more reactive to what was happening. But given what happened in the pandemic, a lot of them are being more anticipatory in terms of what they're seeing. They're trying to plan for what are some expected trends, what are they seeing in terms of analytics, and then where is their business headed. So they're being a lot more anticipatory. They're planning for what type of tool stack they need, what they are likely to see in terms of changing customer psychographics, other things they're seeing. But they're just attempting to be a little ahead of the game. Whereas earlier it was more sit down, end of the year, spend a little time on planning. Now it's almost real time that, what is it that's going to change? And when this changes, how do I react to it? And all of this is being enabled, by and large by, keeping their ears to the ground, which is being enabled by technology. So, people are investing significantly in their tech stacks. People are investing significantly in things like dashboarding. And all of this is real time. And, I think the smart companies are very clear that they're not going to get it right immediately, but they're like, let's start using this and kind of repair it on the fly.
So you're saying that the companies have become more agile and they are on real time taking decisions rather than an annual plan and working on those?
I think the smart ones are becoming a lot more agile. The smart ones have become aware that change is inevitable. And, how do they prepare for it? Do they have the right teams? Do they have the right framework? Do they have the right technology to prepare for this change? They're also very clear that they will sometimes not call these changes correctly, but they are kind of at least putting the teams and the structure and the technologies in place that allow them to react quickly to these changes.
So actually, if you look at one of us study also show that despite economic slowdown, the B2B businesses are continuing to increase their investment. They're seeing that there is investment has been increased over last year. What more they're directing their majority spends to? I mean, what are they doing? Are they acquiring customers? Are they looking for leads?
Sure. I think two things we're seeing. Firstly, a lot of marketers will start out saying, I want to move most of my spend to bottom of the funnel. I think the smart companies are clear that you can't look at just the bottom of the funnel. The smart companies are very clear that you need to look at the whole funnel. So most people are clear that, yes, they do want to focus on marketing initiatives that can be measured. But yes, they are clear that, you do need to grow top of the funnel. You do need to invest in technology. Some of these technologies, some of the stuff you do in terms of, investing in top of the funnel is a multi-year process, is going to take time. But then they're putting in place metrics which allow them to, get a sense of, okay, are we moving in the right direction? Are we, making the right type of impact? The not so smart ones will kind of invert the funnel and say, let's invest a small amount in, growing our brand. Let's invest a little bit on bottom of the funnel, and let's invest most of our money, in lead gen. But I think that doesn't really work.
Yeah. But Siddharth, as you work with a lot of customers, like I said, different geographies, India, outside, and who are these people who are looking at very small budget on the branding and more on acquisition? Is it the new age companies, the startups, or are you looking at mature companies are also going that direction?
I think a lot of the mature companies are also doing that. So I would say that there isn't a one size fits all. We're seeing it across the rank and file. I think it's very often there are organizations which senior management and others may not necessarily be big believers in marketing. So they will have a slightly knee-jerk or a slightly myopic view of marketing, saying, let's invest in only stuff which leads to business. But what they're not thinking about is top of the funnel or, just building the brand or, investing in thought leadership, and those types of things will lead to returns as well. I think they're looking at just, some of the not so smart ones are looking at what is my cost per lead? Can I, just invest more money then get more leads? But, I think, that's not necessarily we are seeing a mix. So even some of the new age companies are doing that.
Yeah.
So it's not that only traditional ones are doing it or only new age. I think it's a mixed bag.
And I'm sure it's not a good strategy, because till the time you are not going to fill up your top funnel, I mean, like it's like you absolutely said that people have inverted the
Marketing funnel.
Yeah, because the biggest headline emerging out of this research is about that there's a pretty consistent narrative despite the pretty consistent narrative which we are seeing of marketing budget cut. I think it's overall, we're not thinking of B2B, B2C, but just saying marketing cut. But the majority B2B marketing leaders saw their budgets increase. Where is this additional budget which is coming is going?
So I think why a lot of people think there is a cut in their marketing budgets is because people are being a lot more measured in how they spend their money.
Yeah.
People are taking a lot more time and thinking through decisions in a lot more detail, looking at spending a lot more time identifying the right metrics, identifying how do they measure if a spend has been successful or not successful. So the spend has actually increased, but just the questions being asked around it, the measurement around this spend, there is a significant increase in detail. And I think, yes, longer term people are thinking in terms of also just matching their spends with their objectives, that if something is adding to it. There were a lot of spends which I would say were vanity spends,
yeah,
where I'm going to do this because this is from my alma mater, I'm going to do this because I like this team, or those types of things. So I think those types of things are being looked at under a microscope or under a magnifying lens, and are probably a lot of that has gone.
Yeah. And the new trends, what is your take on the new trends like generative AIs and stuff? Is it taking a share, or is it pulling the share from existing one, or it's adding up to the more spends?
I think it's adding to it, but what it'll do is it'll be 1 + 1 = 3. Meaning, most large companies we work with today are, I think I saw a LinkedIn study which said close to 70% of Indian B2B companies are looking at and are leveraging generative AI. And what we've seen is like, one of the large tech companies, for example, we worked with, last year, they already went out and created a report. All of the imagery for it was generated using one of these generative AI tools. When some of these generative AI tools came under litigation, they said, okay, let's pause this, but let's continue to watch what happens. So I think the smart ones are basically looking at, investing in technologies like generative AI. Not only is there, significant productivity gain, but for the same spend, you're actually able to do more. So I think people are looking at technologies which enable you to expand what you do. The spend isn't coming down, but just the impact you achieve for the same money is actually increasing.
Yeah. So basically what you're trying to say is that there is regular business going to happen, but that's at the scrutiny. But marketers are comfortable taking risk with the new trends?
Absolutely. I think a lot of marketers are very comfortable taking risk with new trends. They're also very clear that a percentage of their budget needs to be invested in new stuff. They need to experiment with a percentage of their budget. We have a lot of CMOs who will now tell us, okay, let's keep 10% of our media spend just to experiment with new platforms. Let's keep a certain percentage of our spend to try something a little out of the box. Let's see how that works. If that gives us this outrageous return or does very well for us, then we can look at doing more.
Yeah. No, that's great. I think it's what you said absolutely made sense. But you as a marketing solution partner for these agencies, what do you think that how the next year is going to span out?
I think I'm excited, also a little scared. I think there is a lot of opportunity. I think I'm interested to see how the interplay between generative AI, other forms of AI, the MarTech stack, etc., play out. I think there's a lot of potential, where attribution correctly, displaying stuff real time, all of those things are likely to, change how marketing happens. And I think at the forefront of all of this is going to be the entire digital piece. So it isn't, digital marketing separately in a back room with interns. I think digital marketing is at the center of what is happening with marketing.
I think that's great. Excited and scared is a very good emotion, at least for marketeers and looking for. So thank you so much and for giving us your insight.
Thank you for having me. It was my pleasure to be here.